What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of Yards Per Fantasy. I am joined by a few special people today, a few co-workers over at Yards Per Fantasy. Go ahead and introduce yourself. John?
Yeah, my name's John. Kind of first time putting out anything fantasy related, so probably going to make some mistakes, but let's go with it.
Zareh?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I'm Zareh. I've been with Yards Per Fantasy since June, I think. I've started, I guess, my football industry. I got my foot in the door at PFF last year, and I'm still with them. So I'm doing PFF game analysis, and I'm a writer at Yards Per, which is awesome. And I'm loving every single second of it.
I love it, guys. And so we're playing overrated, underrated, or properly rated today with the quarterback position. So first things first is I wanted to start off with Lamar Jackson, who is quarterback 2, and he's 31 overall. Do you think he's overrated, underrated, or properly rated? John, go ahead and start it off.
I mean, I'm not big on there. I go with the but I'm not big on drafting quarterbacks early. So for me, it's a little overrated, but it's probably properly rated based on what he'll produce. So I guess I'd say properly rated for most people.
I think it's a pretty good rating for him. I think he's going on the 2-3 turn, maybe like late 2. He's a good replacement for like a running back too. I mean, he gives you good rushing yards. He gives a nice little floor for rushing yards, and people are saying there might be some regression, but I think he's properly rated.
So. The reason I put him on here is usually you don't put anybody that high up on this list because generally they're at the top of the list for a reason. I actually think Lamar Jackson might be underrated. When we're talking about quarterback 2 and 31 overall, like he's so different than everybody else. And I completely agree with John. I am a late round quarterback guy. I mean, we just did a 20-team league and I was either the last or next to last person to draft a quarterback. I ended up getting Gardner Minshew and Tyrod Taylor because I was just like, I'll kind of switch them around, do some rushing stuff. We'll figure it out. But Lamar Jackson's so different because we're talking about, of course he's going to regress a little bit, right? His touchdown percentage was just insane last year, and that has to come back. But at the same time, like he's probably going to pass more, so we could see like the same amount of passing touchdowns, and his rushing floor is so insane. Like, we're talking close to 1,200 yards. He could easily rush for a touchdown in every game. So it's weird to think that, like, it's almost like rushing-wise, he's almost like a high-end RB1 who throws the ball too. It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So that gets me to my next guy. And this one, I feel like my next two are people are either, one side or the other.
I already know who this is.
Kyler Murray, quarterback 5, 60th overall. Is he overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
What did you say, Kyler? Can you say his rating again?
So he's the 5th quarterback, and he's 60th overall.
I haven't taken any of Kyler Murray. I think he's a great talent. I didn't think we saw enough rushing from him. I don't know if Cliff wants to use him in that way. I think he wants to kind of keep him as a somewhat, a pocket quarterback. He wants to keep that spread formation going. Hopefully they use him. I mean, it's crazy because before DeAndre Hopkins got there, he was going where like Ryan Tannehill's going, and he was going really late. As soon as DeAndre Hopkins got there, it shot him all the way up, and justifiably so. But if we're just saying that DeAndre Hopkins is going to turn him into a top 5 quarterback, I guess that's plausible. Deshaun Watson, performed to that level nearly every single year while DeAndre Hopkins was there. So in that statement, we also have to say that we're also saying that Kyler Murray is of the same talent that Deshaun Watson is, and I'm not so sure about that either. It was tough to gauge Kyler Murray last year because the Cardinals were somewhat of a broken offense and they were just kind of piecing things together. But definitely Kyler Murray had his moments of brilliance. If I'm just like you guys, I'm a late round quarterback guy, so I haven't taken Kyler. I might have taken Kyler Murray in 1, maybe 2 best ball drafts at the most. But I've just been really going with a lot of the late round quarterback stacking, cheap cheap quarterback stacking like DJ Moore, Teddy Bridgewater, AJ Brown, Ryan Tannehill. So I haven't been going for these middle tier quarterbacks like these Dak Prescott and Russell Wilsons. I've been just taking late quarterbacks, cheap quarterbacks later.
So do you think he's overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
About that, I think he's overrated.
Overrated? John?
So Kyler Murray is one person that I was like, I'm going to draft him in at least one league. I need to have him. But it's hard to say he's underrated being at number 5. But so I would say properly rated again, just with DeAndre Hopkins, hopefully a healthy Christian Kirk, and his rushing. And I mean, I think he can, not a floor as big as Lamar Jackson with his rushing, but if he gets 600, 700 yards, I don't know. I don't remember what he had last year rushing, if either of you know. But
I want to say it was like around 400.
Yeah, so if he gets a couple hundred more yards this year, which I don't know, maybe they're trying to take that away. But yeah, I think properly rated. I think he can finish top 6 quarterback easy.
I would go with, I think he's properly rated, but I think that you're paying ceiling price for Murray. So if you made me pick another direction, I would say he's slightly overrated. But I think, like, if you made me rank the quarterbacks of how they'll finish the season, I think Murray's going to finish around QB5, QB6. But he's one of those guys who, without the Hopkins trade, would probably be going around quarterback 10, 11, 12. And he had the potential to, go up to a quarterback 5. You're paying the price of what it costs. You know what I mean? If a gallon of milk's $4, you're paying the $4. You're not getting a deal on it. So I would say properly rated for that one. And that brings us to our next guy, Josh Allen, who is quarterback 7. He is 76th overall, but his ADP is 87. So he's actually going 11 spots behind his overall. And I'm going to start this one off. So I'm a Josh Allen guy. All right. So for real football, Josh Allen, if I was a Bills fan, would be so frustrating. He makes a ton of just simple errors. His deep ball actually is not fantastic, but the Bills, the way they use him for fantasy wise, I like him. He's basically their goal line back. Okay. He has a nice, floor as far as rushing goes. And they put finally an elite receiver behind him. They're like, oh, man, his completion percentage wasn't great last year. Well, his number 1 guy was John Brown. And no disrespect to Smoke, okay, or Cole Beasley, but it's the idea of, like, in a 3rd and 5, are you going to trust one of those 2 guys to really beat their guy every single time? Diggs is that kind of receiver, okay? So, with that being said, he has 2 solid backs in Singletary and Moss. He now has an elite receiver 1. He has, Smoke to take it over the top. He has Beasley working in the slot. I feel like he now has the talent around him, plus he still has that rushing ability. Again, we have to differentiate between what's real football and what's fantasy football. And I think that's an important thing. And I've said this before on other podcasts on my network, is I think Josh Allen, I love Josh Allen as an MVP dark horse.
I actually like Josh Allen as a fantasy quarterback a lot. I was kind of low on him like a month ago, but I had to differentiate between, like you said, fantasy and real life quarterback. And fantasy quarterback, as a fantasy quarterback, he has a lot of design runs that are drawn up for him by the coaching staff. When I was writing a Tyrod Taylor article, I was comparing their production, both their production in Buffalo, and I was looking at the rushing production, and the rushing production was very similar. They were both I think they were about 500 yards a year, they averaged, maybe 450. But I was looking at where that rushing production came from on PFF, and per PFF, the rushing production for Josh Allen, the greater majority of it was on design runs. And for that reason alone, I would probably take him before Russell Wilson. The only apprehension I have with Josh Allen is the second half of his schedule. He has 2 pretty easy games, but it's a brutal second half schedule. And what we're doing is we're assuming that he's taking that next jump as a quarterback, and that progression as a quarterback. Is his deep ball passing going to improve? Are those intangibles, is the decision making going to improve as a quarterback? The athleticism is great, But as a fantasy quarterback, if I'm taking you as a 7th quarterback off the board and passing at other player positions, I don't want to be scared to use you in the second half of the season.
I like that. So, what are you going with, Z?
I'm going with, I'll say properly rated.
Okay. John?
Yeah.
I think I'll go with overrated. I saw some stats, and I wish I could remember who it was. I was just trying to look for it because the whole concept of that he is their goal line back. And I think it was other than 2 touchdowns last year, they had given Frank Gore either 1 or 2 tries inside the 5 before Josh Allen got a carry. So I don't know if it was so much as he's the goal line choice or if they just, Frank Gore just wasn't getting it done last year, which maybe Zach Moss or Devin Singletary would be better. So I kind of went away from that mindset. And so I'm going to have to say overrated just because I think he'll need those touchdowns to be that high of a pick for his rushing. So, yeah, I'm going to have to say overrated. I don't think he finishes anywhere like outside. I'm not saying he finishes outside like the top 12 or 13, but I just think 7. I'd rather take some other quarterbacks then.
I feel you on that one. I would say properly rated at QB7 as far as that goes. And with going 87th overall, I like it. And I would like to take this time to – go ahead.
I said, what do you think of him making the top NFL 100 over Wentz? That was kind of bad.
Did he?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't see that. Yeah,
that's the NFL top 100. He was in it, and Wentz wasn't.
That's tough to argue. Yeah.
Really, about the NFL top 100 really quick, it was really weird. They had Allen Robinson at like 97 and Devontae Adams at like 56 or something like that. There was a lot of atrocities that occurred on the NFL top 100 this year.
It's the players. I mean, I guess
it's the players.
They don't know.
Yeah.
That's true. But I'd also like to take this time to stand up on my soapbox and yet again tell you how stupid snake order drafts are and about ADPs are so irrelevant because they're so stupid. If you're a child who's under the age of 12, do a snake order draft. If you're a grown-ass man, be real and play, auction football. So there you go. All right, next guy. I'm going to go with Drew Brees, who is quarterback 9, 84th overall, ADP of 80. So he's going above his overall rank, and he's quarterback 9. Drew Brees, John, what do you think?
Do you know who the quarterbacks are around him? Like 10, 11?
So 11's Brady, 10 is Wentz, 7's Allen, 8 is Matt Ryan.
Okay. I guess I'd say properly rated. We saw the Saints last year they kind of went back away. They didn't let him throw as much, and I think that continues. I don't think they run and gun. I mean, they don't just let him sit back there and throw it all over the place like he was a few years ago. So I just think that is the only reason that he finishes outside the top 7 or so, just because they're not throwing as much as they used to. And, I mean, but when you have target – and I love the Emmanuel Sanders. That's why I almost want to say underrated because I think he can – that third down – he'll be that third down receiver and just – he'll be open because everyone watches Michael Thomas so much. So I almost want to say underrated because of that, but I'm going to just say properly rated.
I like it. Z?
Yeah, I'm going to say properly rated too, and for that same exact reason that John mentioned, that I love what Emmanuel Sanders' presence does for him in New Orleans. I think Emmanuel Sanders is such a savvy wide receiver, and that mind meld between him and Drew Brees is going to be a beautiful thing to watch. It should afford some easy, efficient production, having Emmanuel Sanders over there along with Michael Thomas. I think there would be a significant amount of yards put up. I like him above Rodgers. I like him above Wentz, obviously. I'll have him and Brady probably right next to each other.
I am going to go against the grain. I don't want any part of Drew Brees. I love his talent around him, and I completely agree with like what you guys are saying. He has so much talent and firepower around him that it's like it seems like he either has to be properly rated or underrated. I'm talking about Drew Brees as the quarterback. He looks not Peyton Manning shot in his last year, but he's starting to look pretty shop worn. Any given time, he's at the point where any hit, whether it's big or not, might knock him out of the game. I think that they put Taysom Hill on that big contract. I think they're going to run a little bit more gadget stuff with him, which, as a quarterback, it takes the ball out of your hand, which kills your rhythm. I just don't love Drew Brees this year. I think Drew Brees has, the potential to be outside the top 15 this year. Just for the simple fact of, I would be way more surprised if he plays a full season, if there is a full season, than if he didn't. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sipping the Kool-Aid of Drew Brees.
I think
so. Yeah. So I think the last two we're going to go with is I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks in a group, okay, that are all have an ADP around themselves, and we have to do who's overrated, who's underrated, who's properly rated. So this one is the 11th, 12th, and 13th quarterback. And that is Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers. Out of those 3, who's overrated, underrated, or properly rated? Z, you want to start it off?
Rodgers is definitely properly rated. You said it was Brady first and then Stafford second?
Yes.
Brady is overrated and Stafford is underrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
John?
Oof, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Brady's targets are just – that makes me want to say he's underrated. But Stafford, we saw what he started doing last year. I love Stafford, so I kind of want to say he's underrated. And then – but I think the Packers will just keep not throwing the ball as much and just try to run the ball. So we'll say he's overrated. Brady's properly. Stafford's underrated.
This one's so tough for exactly what you guys said. Is Aaron Rodgers still Aaron Rodgers? He's one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. Matt Stafford, when he did play last year before injury, was absolutely in fuego, on fire. And Tom Brady is the GOAT, unquestionably, undoubtedly, for a reason, okay? Brady's 43 now. I don't know if he can push it down the field like Jameis did to Mike Evans. That kind of concerns me. Matt Stafford's always been like a gunslinger, but he's never really been elite. And then Aaron Rodgers, like you said, I think they're going to be running the ball a lot. So there's pros and cons to, all 3 of them. Go ahead, Z.
Oh, so I was going to say, I think, the commentary behind Stafford's production last year was that the defense was horrible, right? So they were in negative game scripts a lot. So what have they really done besides adding that stud corner in the draft this year? What have they really done to improve that defense?
Sure.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. And we talk about, firepower around him. Is they just got, Swift, who's a great receiving back. They still have Galladay. They have a lot of talent on that offensive end. So I'm completely with you, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of those 3 guys I definitely by a mile trust Stafford the least, right? You know what I mean? You're talking about 2 of the greatest we've ever seen in Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
We're
No disrespect.
also talking about fantasy-wise.
Exactly.
Out there.
Exactly. You're right. I'm going to go with – oh, man, this one's tough. I'm going to go with Stafford is properly rated, Brady is overrated, and Aaron Rodgers is underrated. At a certain point, don't the wheels have to fall off the bus for Tom Brady? Tom Brady cannot be playing like when I get, when I'm 60. I feel like Tom Brady still might be in the league. It's crazy.
How much better are his receivers this year than the past few years, though?
Oh, you're right. Even when Moss was there,
right?
Moss and Welker, this might still be a better core that he has. I know Gronk's kind of shot at this point, but you still have OJ, you have Mike Evans, you have Godwin. That team is freaky. So I'm with you. Z, go ahead.
Dwayne McFarland just put out a really cool article, and he was pointing out the fact that when Brady has his top weapons, he'll finish as a top 10 quarterback every single year, and he's done it consecutively. So and he also said this might be the best offensive talent he's ever played with, and it's hard to disagree with that. Did Brady? So he showed a lack of deep ball strength probably last year. That's what a lot of people are saying. But as far as any other aspects of the game, was there any decline besides that? He was still moving really well in the pocket.
Well, my thing would be is Bruce Arians always run a vertically
right,
attacking system.
sure.
Brady doesn't Brady's one of the last guys at this point of his career to fit that scheme, but he
Right.
still is Tom Brady. He's an absolute technician. I feel like the field's going to be squeezed in, right?
Cool.
Evans and Godwin can both take the top off. I don't know if Brady can take the top off. So as safeties, maybe you sit down a little bit more. We saw how high powered that offense was. And for Jameis being one of the worst decision makers I've ever seen in my life, he has an absolute cannon. He has a ton of talent. Brady's definitely smarter. He's going to turn the ball over less. But it's just the idea of, I just don't know if, I feel like that 10-11 spot's going to be best case scenario for Brady. I don't really see him being, 7, 8, 9. Guys,
So remember last year when everybody was hyping up OJ Howard because we were saying, Bruce Arians, everybody was saying, Bruce Arians doesn't utilize a tight end. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I think Bruce Arians has a short leash for players he doesn't really trust. A lot of proponents of OJ Howard were propping him up. He was going really early in drafts. So it was a whole player talent versus coaching philosophy argument happening. I was a proponent for OJ Howard. I know in the first game he fumbled the ball in the red zone. He just performed really poorly, and from that point on, he was just utilized as a blocker mostly. And that was with Jameis Winston over there. Now with Brady coming into the offense, and with the wealth of knowledge, and he's the GOAT. He comes to the offense. Is Bruce Arians going to put his foot down and say, "No, we're running my offense, Brady. We're not going to do anything you want to do"? Is it going to be a lot of pushing the ball down the field as much as Bruce Arians has traditionally done?
And that's a super valid point. I just with COVID, how are you going to go with Brady, what fits him the best, and then the other 10 guys have to learn off that? Or are you going to go with your system that the other 10 guys know and make Brady catch up? That's what I'm not sure of, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I would lean toward Brady. Arians is a great coach, but like I said, Tom Brady's the GOAT for a reason. It's just really tough. And then the last group I want to talk about is the 16, 17, 18, which is Ryan Tannehill, Cam Newton, and Baker Mayfield. Who is overrated, underrated, or properly rated? John, you want to start it off?
Yeah. So who was first? It was Tannehill, Cam, then Baker?
Yes.
All right. So I'll just say Baker, underrated. I don't know. I just like him better than the other two. So I guess that's why. Cam, I'm not sure what we're going to get. I almost want to say it's hard to tell. I mean, do they use him in the goal line? Obviously, his targets aren't great, and he's not as good as Brady, obviously, who's going to increase what his targets are doing. So I guess I would say him overrated, just purely because we just don't know what we're going to see. And I'll say Tannehill properly rated. I think he's good there. I just think he was so efficient last year that we won't see a repeat of that. So yeah, Baker underrated, Tannehill properly rated, Cam overrated is what I'll go with.
I like it. Z?
Yeah, I want to say Cam underrated just because, I'm a gambling man for sure. Why not? Why won't Belichick use him as a rushing quarterback? They paid him like a minimum. It's gonna be I mean, Belichick. I think Belichick's smart enough to understand what the strengths and weaknesses of these quarterbacks are. If Cam's good at doing something and he's obviously much more better quarterback than Jarrett Stidham, I think they're going to somehow create an offense that complements Cam. He's at a cheap ADP. I think he's undervalued. He offers a nice rushing floor. I think Tannehill is overvalued. I think the departure of Jack Conklin is going to really affect him. That if he's not throwing from a clean pocket, he's not going to be as efficient. PFF stats show that he was the most efficient quarterback from a clean pocket. If he's not getting those clean pockets to throw from, I think it's going to really hurt his production. And Baker, he's properly rated. I'm really out on on Baker as a quarterback at this point. But who knows with Stefanski there, he might bring him back down to earth a little bit and kind of just make things easy on him. We'll have to wait and see on that. But those guys are going late in the drafts where there's really no risk at all. So you can just kind of just pick one and just go with it. That's why I like Cam Newton as an underrated guy, because I think he offers the most upside.
I definitely feel you on that one. So when I look at these guys, I think, if Newton has anything left, he's going to be better than quarterback 17. But the problem is we don't know if Cam Newton has anything left. Like it scares me. I love Newton. Like 17 was crazy to me. Like I completely agree with you. But with the complete like question marks and uncertainty, I end up going with Newton as properly rated, even though I really do feel like he'll be better than quarterback 17. Because that's a great point that Z had, is they signed him to the minimum. They're just going to use and abuse him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's basically just a running back. They're going to be like, I don't care if your career's over after this year, right? So they're going to run him into the floor, I think. Tannehill, I'm not a huge Tannehill guy. I agree with what John said, is he was so efficient last year. I don't think you can replicate that or even get that close to it. I think as a defense, you have to have it figured out, right? Derrick Henry's going to carry the ball between the tackles, and then they're going to play action every so often and try to throw it 50 yards down the field to A.J. Brown, right? Like, isn't that essentially their offense in a nutshell? Like,
yeah.
I don't really, what are you going to have, Jonnu Smith run an option route? Like, he's okay. He's good, I guess, but I don't think he's elite by any stretch of the imagination. Baker, I like the addition of Kevin Stefanski. I was kind of apprehensive at first about Kevin Stefanski, but I think with who they have in the backfield, I think it's very similar to kind of what Minnesota had with Cooks. So I'm going to go Baker as underrated, Cam Newton is properly rated, Tannehill was overrated. Personally, I think that's what I'm going to go with. These two groups I threw out there are so tough that, like, it's really, you could be right or wrong on any one of them. But just a little bit of a fun game, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed. And we'll be coming back with the running back, wide receiver, and tight end positions of underrated, overrated, or properly rated. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and go follow my guys, John and Z, on Twitter. See you guys.